AI,
Tavaran,
Xian,
Terra,
Science,
Synthworld,
Synthworld.
Hello and welcome to the Fortnightly Frontier. My name is Paul, Berserker on Batman Shelley, and I'm guest starring here on these guys' show. I'm in the middle. They're making a delicious Paul sandwich right now. So that's how this is going. Was that what we were gonna do?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
It's my jam.
Yes. I am their jam. The delicious Paul jam. It's between Myre and Darsh. That's how this works.
Right. Yeah.
We're a nice 50-50 bread sandwich, yeah. But yeah, so welcome everybody. Today we're what are you gonna say?
Oh, you want me to introduce the topic too? Because I can do that too.
Yes.
I didn't know if we were supposed to do that.
Well, I mean,
Of course.
that is the reason why we have Paul on the show, the great historian himself, because today we're talking about
the elections
Yeah.
of 2950.
Yay!
Not the other elections. The more interesting elections that aren't going to
the somehow
vote or
more
die.
interesting election. Yeah.
The one that's a little bit safer to talk about with your friends.
Yeah. As long as you're voting Addison.
Oh man, you're one of those people. I can't believe. But there's a lot of questions out there people have because there's lots of resources, but as always, people are like, well, there's 15 things I got to read. I don't want to have to read a bunch of lore stuff. I'd rather just watch a video on it. So we're here to talk about the lore stuff as well as the impacts of the lore. Does it actually matter who you vote for? Whoever becomes an Imperator, will it matter? Will it impact the game? Because lore is fun, but we all are here to play a game. So that's the question we're going to answer.
Yes. Well, first off, we can round off quickly what all these candidates, who they are, what they stand for. Would you have a beer with them, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So before, I guess, let's do that first before we then start asking. So who are we for? That kind of stuff before we then go into that kind of thing. Okay, so I guess candidate number one, from the list, I guess alphabetically speaking, would be Leilani Addison. So
It's true.
Yeah, so Paul, what can you tell us about Leilani Addison?
AI lady. That's what she knows. She's known for. So she is a Redder scientist. For those of you guys who don't know, the University of Redder is the highest university in the UEE. It's basically a planet of universities. It's a planet that has lots and lots of Redder itself is this huge science and research and academics. And the University of Redder is the highest of the tier on that planet. So she is a professor from that university, which means she is very, very, very smart. She's an independent. She has no connections to any of the politicians or any of the political parties outside of it. And her platform is mostly based off of education, sciences, and specifically to return funding to AI research. So
Isn't she the dean at the university?
I don't remember if she's the dean or not. She might be the dean of sciences. I don't know if she's the dean.
Ah, okay, yeah.
But
A dean then.
a dean, I think. Yeah.
Right. So, I think I should say before we continue, we have 2 Europeans and an American on the show, and I would just like to say that whatever you people think is extreme leftism, we think is kind of moderate and centralist. So that's the sort of differences we're gonna have if we're in any way comparing these digital politics to the real ones.
You could say that science is in her Dean NA. I waited for
I saw you just trying to.
Perfect comical timing, 5 minutes after the fact. Yeah.
So in terms of politics, political spectrum in the general universal spectrum, rather than necessarily any local places, she tends to be more on government control. She wants to have more funding towards government. And economically, it's hard to tell because she doesn't seem to have a distinctive economic policy that I know of. She's a one-issue candidate, education sciences, and she thinks there's just kind of like that will deal with all the other problems.
I would argue
most
that
of the candidate-
it's not just education, because in her final statement, she does mention stuff about the Xi'an and wanting to strengthen bonds with that and the human Xi'an agreement. So, but other than that, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, and like that also falls along the line of research, though,
Right.
because I'm sure one of the reasons why she wants to have better bonds with Xi'an is because technology trade, like what's been happening with Misk in the universe.
Yeah,
Those
the
who don't know-
Huja.
Yeah, the Huja. Well, before the Huja was the Misk and Xi'an and Apoa agreement, which predates the Huja, which was the reason why, like, the Freelancer was built with Xi'an technology. Same with a lot of the early tech, and in exchange, Misk gave the Xi'an the patterns for the Hull series. So, which is why the Hull series is considered the most common ship in the universe, because it's not only the standard shipping ship for humanity, but it's also for the Xi'an.
You know,
So-
I'd love to see a Xi'an-owned Hull series and see what they've done with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a souped Hull series.
Oh, it'd be like sort of like that. What is that Japanese tuning trend? With
Is it ricing? Is that what they call it?
No. It's like a very specific thing that's happened in the past couple of years, where they just deck out their trucks with lights and mirrors and huge bits of carbon fiber and these really tall exhausts that come out of the back and it's like 2 meters above the car.
Yeah, I want to see a Xi'an like a Hull series so much. You'd think that like in the game there would be like so we have all these like hulls across like not just the Hull series but all these other like ships, right? You would think that there would be different kinds of like like for instance a worn like a Cutlass versus like a pristine one versus like one that's been modded and tuned.
It's called Bosozoku. If you want to go, if anybody in chat wants to Google that to see some of the examples of such a thing. So it wouldn't be exactly like that, but that sort of left field sort of styling and tuning I want to see applied to sort of Earth ships,
Right. I mean, you need the Banu for that, right? They're the Bang Bang guys, not the Xi'an.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
not the Xi'an
Yeah,
Bano.
they'd
Yeah,
definitely be
yeah.
But yeah, so like I feel like that's probably in the lines of theirs as well. Like the whole idea of them being of Xi'an, or of the Xi'an tech being, or the whole concept of the Huja, the Huxa, is basically like she wants to do that because more technology.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's still in her wheelhouse of I like technology.
I like technology too, like bring us. So personally, what I want is for them to bring the universe of Star Citizen a little bit closer to Star Trek and a little bit further away from BSG when it comes to like just how like rough and tumble things can tend to be, yeah. And it seems like having her as an Imperator would at least make make humanity geared towards something less than just personal gain. I just like karate chop my microphone, but yeah, like something less than just the economy, or less than just this, that, the other, but more like that more noble human kind of like thing. But yeah, a lot of these other like candidates kind of make things like ground them a bit more, make them more realistic. So, and less, like humanity is a utopia like in Star Trek, and more like we actually need to worry about the economy and stuff. And I guess that's where Titus Costigan comes in.
Is that a segue to Titus Costigan?
Yeah.
It is.
Or Space Trumpet.
And
well,
an Addison designed segue, actually.
yeah.
So it hovers.
Oh gosh. So Titus is, I like to call him exciting status quo, fun status quo.
Okay.
Which is opposed to his other universalist counterpart, who is boring status quo.
Right.
He is somewhere between a centralist and a universalist, though he is a universalist. And for those of you guys who don't know about that, he's the first person we're going to talk about that actually has a political party. So the universalists tend to be a bit more centrist across the board, center right mostly. They tend to have more a view of government control, but they also, trade is good no matter who is doing it, kind of situation.
Right.
They're neoliberal is in terms of like they're like a definition of a neoliberal party. They're all about free trade. They're using the government to improve economics conditions, but also using it to try to further social concerns. And then doing it, a lot of it is like, hey, we're going to do this movement by encouraging companies to hire these specific types of people so we can get more. So it's that kind of politics that you're tending to see with the Universalists.
Right.
And Titus Costigan tends to side on the let businesses do the work, the heavy lifting, and take the work out of government. So like having the government do less involved in people's lives and moving that over to incentivizing private industries to do it for them. And the example he liked to use is like if there is a famine on a planet, you can go help those people with immediate food aid, but that's not going to stem the problem of the famine. So, working to incentivize more trade to that world, or so that there's better tax cuts, so you're selling the right types of fertilizer on that planet, is better than just giving them free food, because it's teach a man to fish, not give the man a fish kind of idea. So,
although it kind of considering the way who he is, as a descendant of, it's more like what's a version of that one is like build a man on fire and he'll be warm for a night. Set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. Sort of thing.
Yeah, that's the controversy, is that he's actually the son of the current Imperator, which has never happened before since the fall of the Mezzers. So people are still a little cagey. It's been 100+ years since the Mezzers, over almost 200 years since the Mezzers fell, but still people are cagey about the idea of of like dynasties of political figures. So
I think people might be hesitant, but at the same time, you might also get a bunch of people who kind of like almost like wistfully look back and go, that's kind of how it's supposed to be. To some degree. I mean, not everybody, not you, Darj, because of the way you winced, but there will be people out there who would be like, well, that makes sense. Like, oh yeah, he's basically lived it his whole life. Like, who else would know better than he is? That kind of thing. So what do you think about
how long has the current Imperator been Imperator? It's a 10-year term.
It's a 10-year term, yeah.
There is no re-election either.
So like
9.9
years at this point.
Yeah, so it's not exactly his whole life, but yes, I guess most of his adult life, I guess he has been completely immersed in politics. But on the other hand, the people who are fed up with the status quo will probably not be interested in 10 more years of the same thing.
So,
but he's a little bit more exciting because he's got newer ideas. He's a different type of universalist.
Yeah.
So
one thing that we didn't cover, I suppose, with the first person with Addison was, okay, so she's all about science. Let's talk gameplay implications. So what kind of gameplay implications do you think that Addison would bring to Star Citizen if she was to be elected? Because, like when it comes to, brass tacks, this is a game. So she's endorsed by Educators United, the Institute for Interspecies Peace, and the UEE Science Society. So with those things in mind, what do you think could we get possibly as a result of her?
This is the question I wanted to ask at the end.
Okay.
Because of not the last, but the previous Star Citizen, Star Citizen Live with the lore team, where they kind of said that who ends up being Imperator is not going to have that much of an impact. And the exact example they gave was, for instance, if Addison wins, one of the missions you go to would be a lab that's dealing with AI, and something has gone wrong and you need to go help. But if Addison doesn't win, the same lab will be there doing the same thing, except it wouldn't be government endorsed, so it would be somewhere under the radar. But, gameplay wise, it would be pretty much the same thing.
But it's all about flavor. So speaking of flavor, what do you think that Addison will bring to the table, apart from maybe perhaps, well, AI is a given, and flavoring AI missions so they aren't illegal is a given. But what else do you think Addison could bring to the table?
I think you also got to remember that the way that the lore team does stuff is ripples in a pond.
Right.
We don't know exactly what they would end up at the very beginning, but the long-term implementation might be you get more AI missions. There may be some AI technology that's being developed. It may not impact gameplay, but it'll impact the story. Whereas like now you have to protect this ship, which was designed with an AI in mind during an Vanduul invasion, and its sole job is to coordinate all the strikes, and your job as a player is to keep it alive, where that might be a different like end game goal than if you had elected, say,
LaSalle.
LaSalle. Yeah. I end up saying something differently.
Yeah.
So I think like it's hard to tell, but I think there probably is going to be more of an impact than people realize. It's just the initial impact you won't see more AI stuff that you can do. Like you won't have suddenly the CIG is going to start working on AI blades more. That's not how that's going to work.
No.
So,
but in terms of story, I guess I should then rephrase the question. What would you like to see down the line as, being a ripple result of her being the Imperator? What would you like to see? What kind of story developments would you like to see?
Star Citizen has this problem, in the Star Citizen universe, AI never works well.
Right.
It always goes crazy and kills its master, or just goes nuts.
Is there any sci-fi universe where that doesn't happen? I mean, we have Data.
Star
And
Trek
Data
is
constantly struggled with the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a whole bunch of them did kill people.
Yeah, exactly.
You have Futurama.
True.
That is true.
Then again, they're always, at the fingertips of Mother. She just has to push one button and the entire robot army rebels.
Yes. But I mean, like, AI has always been, you could say Altered Carbon is like that too, because like there's AI and humans live side by side and everything.
I love Altered Carbon so much.
Poe is probably one of my favorite characters in recent years, not just on that show.
Speaking of, again, a lot of cyberpunk has like AI is not bad. It's not inherently bad in cyberpunk universes. And Star Citizen
Halo.
Yeah.
Shut up, Google.
I'd name a pet Poe for sure.
But yeah, there's definitely like a lot of cyberpunk themes, and Star Citizen pulls a lot of themes from cyberpunk storytelling. But I still think that likely the end result will be, look, we done messed up AI again. Now the players are gonna have to deal with it.
Gosh darn it.
Yeah. I think that'll probably be, if you really wanna be John Connor leading a revolution against the machines, then yes, Leilani Addison is going to be your candidate. And it's not like a I hate AI kind of thing. It's that like CIG doesn't want it, and they even reiterated it in that 1 hour special, which is like, Chris does not want AI running things. They wants a reason for people to have to be flying their ships. And
but then you have the blades, which are sort of like a compromise, because not every time you can afford either NPC crew or get together with friends to man all the stations on your ship.
I think the blades are kind of a Battlestar Galactica compromise, where it's like, well, you're not going to get an AI that controls the entire ship, so you can have a blade that controls one thing but doesn't talk to anything else. So you have like one that controls your guns but not your life support. So if it gets hacked, then you're fine still. But yeah, so I guess we talked about Addison now completely. We covered Titus, but so he's been endorsed by the Business Economic Trust, the Merchants Guild, and the Intersystem Haulers United. So when I look at him, I think, okay, well, if all you want to do is be a space trucker, he seems to be your guy. What do you think? You
think GAG voted for him?
Oh, he must.
Of course.
If he read it, yeah. If he didn't, maybe not.
GAG, if you're watching this and you still haven't decided, please continue watching until the end for our official endorsement.
But yeah, so I guess in the same vein as Addison, I mean, like, it's maybe not necessarily so cut and dried exactly what's going to happen if you vote for him. When I see this, at least before you mentioned, like, you know, it's not essentially going to change the game, Darge, but like when I see this, I see, okay, maybe if you do this, then haulers in the game will maybe be a bit more protected or whatever, or it might have some impact to that kind of gameplay. What do you guys think?
Yes. I think you'll probably see. So here's it's a little thing, but I think if you elected him, you would have, because we don't see it quite yet, but you would have things like fees lower, maybe.
Right.
Or any kind of like taxes for travel. Like I'm assuming that there'll be some sort of travel tax when you're going between systems where you'll have to stop off at a station and pay like a toll, as it were.
Or just docking for, if you're a hauler, you get, you know, smaller fee for docking, even if you have like a huge ship.
Yeah, because the taxes are lower in that area, because they were able to lower the taxes because they want to incentivize more trade and that kind of stuff. So I think that would be it would be a smaller impact, but I think it would be more of a direct impact for people who haul large cargo.
Right.
So.
Darge?
With a sort of increase in the importance of trade, you could probably also then see an increase in NPC raiding parties on trade routes.
Okay.
Because you know, if more importance is added to trade routes, then, you know, a lot more actual capital is going to be traveling between locations. So that'll be a much more let's say more lucrative job opportunity for AI, for NPCs, and for players at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
What about Synthworld? What is each candidate's
their
opinion
stand on
Synthworld?
So if I'm
That's an entire lore post, actually.
Yeah, it is. I think, are they not all in favor of it apart from Sherrod?
Yes, they're all in favor apart from Sherrod, but they all have different approaches.
Right.
So for instance, Addison's approach is let everyone see what we're doing at Synthworld, and everybody else is like, no, let's not. There's a lot of top secret stuff there, and that's kind of, it leads to like what Costigan's stance is saying, is like let's sell this stuff, let's let this happen in the industry, as long as it's not top secret. But then everyone else is like, but it's all top secret. Like you can't just do that because it's all top secret, guys. So they're both similar in the vein of like, let's open it up and let's innovate. Whereas Costigan's like, let's sell it. Addison's like, let's spread it for free.
Right.
So
I think gameplay implications, though, as long as you don't vote for anybody but Sherrod, there's likely going to be an Elite Dangerous style kind of like a group incentive to do delivery missions to Synthworld to build it. And then with Sherrod, then it'd just be like more like ED, because it'd be like something different elsewhere, everywhere in the verse. Like we'll have their own thing. But I guess we'll get to our policies later, right?
So I guess what we have right now in terms of actual trading and mining, that would building Synthworld will be one of those things where it would actually make sense from an like an individual point of view, instead of doing all of that because you got a mission from a mission giver.
Right. Yeah. It'd be like a verse incentive. So the other universalist you mentioned before was Paul LaSalle, the boring one you mentioned. So can you tell us about him?
He's a centralist, but
centralist. Sorry, this one.
Yeah, Paul LaSalle is not just boring. He is Trump without the personality when it comes to a lot of his political beliefs.
Right.
And yeah, a boring. He's Jeb Bush. I like saying he's the Jeb Bush of Star Citizen politics. Please clap. He is a traditionalist, a very traditional kind of candidate. He wants to keep Earth as the center, and he's a very traditional centrist candidate in the sense that he believes that the government should not be involved in economics. That the government needs to be a laissez-faire stance on most big and small businesses, and to increase things like protection for bounty hunters. And essentially, if you like to pew pew, then he's your guy.
Right.
Because it'll be more like the wild west everywhere instead of
more companies would have, like for instance, Stanton would have less presence of the UEE would be the kind of idea, and more like private security would take over. I think that's likely what you'd see with something like the impact of his election would be. You, instead of seeing the advocacy stopping you and scanning you, or the advocacy coming at the top speeds, it would be Blackjack Security or some other security corporation with the Idris coming to attack you.
Yeah, I think one of his stances there as well is to make it so that only the highest like crimes will actually have jail time. So you can have a CS 203 and just pay it off and be on your way and still be a bounty hunter or a pirate or whatever. So I think if
that was actually something I got, like, would have been nice today, because Myra and I were trying to play something and I had a CS1. Yeah, and that's like that's in limbo, like you're not exactly a wanted man, but you're not exactly allowed to go anywhere either because you're not allowed to land.
Yeah, you just become an outcast with CS1. It really sucks. Yeah, hopefully that gets fixed eventually. But yeah.
They said they will be tweaking that, both in how long it takes for the heat to build because of your presence, and which levels do it. So yeah. Oh, well, I'd love to see more. I guess it will happen, but we'd love to see it soon. Like just for them to build upon that idea. So another thing that LaSalle wants to do is he wants to redo the whole Fair Chance Act, which is like CIG's version of Star Trek's Prime Directive, right? When it comes to like AI, not AI, but like creatures that are sentient, fledgling civilizations. That's
the one. Yeah. So, what do you make of that, Paul?
Drill, baby, drill. That's what he is. He's all about them drill. They ain't got no blasters to stop us, so we just it's their fault. We need to, they don't need that copper. We need that copper. Let's just rip that copper up. I don't like the stance, personally, but like he's very much like why are we putting gloves on our resource gathering? We have to fight the Vanduul. We have the Xi'an still around us who can't be trusted. We have to compete with the Banu economically. The universe is huge, and we have a lot of complicated issues we have to solve. Why are we trying to protect? We want to protect especially sentient creatures that are kind of going, but why are we protecting empty systems that have nothing, that we're just kind of observing for the sake of how do early stars develop? It's like, that doesn't, great, you can observe while we're mining the hell out of these planets because they have resources we need. So it's a little bit of it is, oh, you're a heartless a-hole, but the other half is like, but yeah, you've got a point. Like, we're protecting a lot of systems which we don't need to protect. We just doing it because scientists want it to.
Right.
So Are we though? I mean, has it become so, broad that it's basically just protecting systems where life has a chance to develop?
Kind of. Like, for instance, the latest system that was found was the one with the black hole. I always forget the name of it, but it's still protected under the Fair Chance Act, because any new system that's discovered that's in UEE territory or near UEE territory, the UEE puts a blanket ban on any settlement of it until they've completely surveyed the entire system. So even if the system is valuable and they know it right away, they can't really do much. Like, for instance,
do we know for certain that we're still at war with the Vandal in 2950?
That is something I was thinking about when I was going out to grab my caffeine. It's like, Squadron 42 hasn't come out yet, not even episode 1 or 3, so like we don't know what the outcome is.
We are still at war with the Vanduul. That's a big thing.
Okay.
All of them
That's
are.
what big government wants it to believe.
Putting stuff in our water to make us fight the Vanduul.
Make the freaking duel.
So you mentioned before, Paul, like, we have to compete with the Banu economically. What makes it interesting to me is that I don't think any of these guys actually have a stance on the species economy at all, do they? I mean, like in terms of like
LaSalle
Addison
does.
LaSalle.
And well, I would say all of them are pro trade with other species except for LaSalle. But LaSalle, I don't think he's publicly said it, but the centralists have very vehemently publicly said that
They want to retract from
the only good Xeno is a dead Xeno
Right.
kind of concept. Well, the extremists in the Centralist Party are people like Xenothreat, who aren't technically centralists. They would never be considered centralists because the Centralist Party would never allow them to.
right.
But they definitely hold centralist sympathies. The concept of the centralists, a lot of the centralists is like, heck, I mean, there was a centralist who tried to ban Suj Kosi from even holding office because he was Tavaran.
Right.
And he got like slapped down for it, but it's like that's a pretty typical kind of like attitude for the centralists, which is like you're either mildly tolerating the fact that other species live amongst humanity, but you don't want to expand anymore.
So it's
to
like
the
the exact
extremist
opposite
kick
of
them all out.
transitionalists.
Yes, yeah. Centralists and transitionalists actually have a lot of stuff in common economically, but socially they hate each other. They also fight all the time on the floor of the Senate between the two.
And speaking of the translationists, we're gonna go into Mirango. So Mirango.
Transitionalist.
Transitionalist.
Not translationalist.
Transitionalists, yes, transitionalists.
I just call them
Mirango.
transits.
Yeah.
Is she Mira no, or is she like Mira Nago? That's the question I've always had.
It's Vietnamese, so it's
Is it Vietnamese? I thought
ngo.
it was
Yes,
So it
Okay.
the
yeah,
ng
it's like-
is pronounced like wrong. So ngo.
is it yeah, but it's not wrong. It's wrong. It's so
Wrong.
it's it's like a gerund, going
Yeah.
stuff like that. That sound, but it's for non-Vietnamese. It's very difficult to put at the very beginning of a word. I've been
Yeah.
trying for a long time, and I'm actually
go.
quite linguistically talented.
Just say no.
Yeah.
Just say no. But it's
Just
no.
no, yeah.
No.
Yeah, ngo.
No. Like no, but no. Okay.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
No, man. No. No.
No.
No.
No. No. Mir no.
There we go.
My Jove, you're
Yeah,
speaking
see?
Vietnamese. Yeah. But yeah, so what can you tell us about her?
She is a probably the least controversial candidate next to the Universalists, which is strange because one of her biggest things is moving the tap capital to Terra, which she doesn't really have the power to do. She kind of does, but doesn't really. It still would have to go before the Senate. Her basic policies are a very, very traditional transitionalist kind of political platform, which is move the capital to Terra, reduce the differences between citizens and civilians, like give more rights to civilians, and increase trade with the Xi'an.
So what's the difference between a citizen and a civilian?
A citizen is willing to put his life on the line for the good. I'm sorry, that's Starship Troopers. I don't know what I'm saying.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's a difference between Star Citizens and Starship Troopers. Difference between civilians and citizens.
It's slightly different. So the concept of citizens in, say, Starship Troopers, but like by Robert Heinlein, was the idea that if you are able to put up the gusto, then you should be able to vote. But you could only become a citizen through military service. Whereas with Star Citizen, it's much more Roman, which is there was never a requirement to have to serve in the military to be a citizen. But there was always an unspoken rule where like you were expected to serve in the military if you were going to be from a patrician household, or you would be doing other sorts of big public services. Because it was expected of you to help the government, because you need to have some skin in the game.
Right.
And so the way that it exists in Star Citizen is less of a, hey, we want to make sure these people have skin in the game, and more of, oh God, we have billions of people across, hundreds of planets. How are we going to run an election with all of them voting? So it would just get nightmarish in terms of it's expensive now for most countries with large populations to do democracy. I can't imagine the scope and the costs of doing democracy on a galactic scale like that, with having to wait for everyone to vote. And then how do you count it all? And then how do you like all those sorts of things? So it was introduced in the UNE really early in humanity's history as mostly as a way of trying to just sort of like limit the number of people who can vote, so you don't have this like overwhelming number of voting, so it wouldn't cost an arm and a leg to run an election for a government that was just getting on its feet. And that just kind of continued on. And because like there really isn't much of a difference between civilians and citizens, they can do pretty much everything the same. The major difference is that citizens generally have an easier time dealing with intersystem travel, like traveling through jump points, setting up multi-system corporations, and we say like joining the military is a requirement for Star Citizen, but and for us in a video game, we think of it like you have to go fight the bad guys and be on the front lines. But we also forget that in most militaries, there's like a filing clerk. Like there's plenty of people, I'm sure, in the Star Citizen universe who joined the military and ended up just stamping documents for their entire tours on Terra,
right?
Just because they needed someone to do that, and they still got their citizenship. So,
idea strikes me. There's no FTL data communication in Star Citizen, right?
No.
So everything is. So is it actually is all data transported on ships, or is it all wired but with light speed travel?
Data canonically is moved around by Herald. That's why in like the Squadron 42 thing, like they had heralds inside the data running part of it.
So voting information would also be transported via heralds and stuff like and similar ships, right? So what in 10 years for a new election, could players? Okay. Yeah. Let's say there's another type of event where such a huge amount of data is being transported. Could players get in the way of that?
Possibly.
Kind of interesting.
Now, one of the things they said with the lore team specifically is the reason why they have a month to vote. They have month-long voting in the UAE is because you have to travel to vote.
Okay.
So if you're a citizen, you have to go to the polls, and so there may be polls only on certain planets. So you have to build in that time for citizens to be able to charter a flight to go to Redder or to Terra from say like Nyx to be able to vote. Because you can't.
It won't be post. Like millions of heralds traveling all over the universe, carrying
their ballots.
Each. Yeah. It doesn't seem to be like a vote by mail system exists in the UAE. There may be in like local systems, like you could probably send like your vote at home and send it in from home from like Terra if you live on Terra. But like if you're like living on let's just say Bremen, in the middle of frontiersman country, you may not really have the ability to send your vote in to the local voting offices. So.
Right. So. Question now, like, so about citizenship and stuff. The game isn't called Star Civilian. Do we all start as citizens, or like,
They have yet to determine that, as far as I can tell. The idea was that citizenship is earned through military
Squadron 42.
Right.
Playing Squadron 42.
Right.
But you don't necessarily have to be a citizen through military service. There are other means of doing so, and even CIG has said that like if you wanted to earn your citizenship without doing Squadron 42, you could, but it would require a great service to the Empire, which would depends on what they want to. There's just probably some way you can become a citizen by like helping out the say Synth World project by delivering a certain number of goods, or like doing like donating those goods to the Synth World project and be like, hey, yeah, you've earned your citizenship.
It does seem like it's almost like a way to diegetically keep people away from certain bits of content unless they buy Squadron 42.
I don't know if that's the case. I don't think that was the idea, but it was definitely the idea that like Star Citizen was like you're supposed to play Squadron 42 and then play Star Citizen.
Right.
So. Well, yeah. So
But yeah, those were plans from the beginning before games grew in scope so much that nobody can recognize them anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of the differences between civilians and citizens, the main thing that no,
just say no. Yeah.
No.
Nah.
No. The way she wants to do it is kind of like by removing some of the restrictions from civilians, not necessarily giving them the vote, but like letting them, set up multi-system corporations a little bit easier, removing more fees or taxes on them that they normally would. The idea is that like the transits really want to just abolish the citizenship system altogether, but saying so would be political suicide because you're telling a bunch of people who've already served in the military or did other things to get their citizenship, like, hey, let's let more people who didn't do any of this stuff get in there. And they're like, we did this our time. They have to too if they want to.
That is such a boomer way of looking at things, though.
Yeah,
it's the same thing in real life when it comes to U.S. politics and abolishing student loans and stuff like that. Is like, we had to do 3 jobs for 20 years to pay off our loans. Why do these people have all their debts removed and stuff like that? That is, it gets my hackles up so much.
But like that's the concept as well. And there's also things like, for instance, the Tevarin are a big feature because Tevarin themselves can become citizens, but a lot of Tevarin aren't seem to able to, because like Tevarin are not uncommon in the military. They're very common in the army and very common in the navy.
Right.
But most of those Tevarin are prison battalions, essentially. They're forced to join the military because they have the option of going to prison or joining the military. And it seems like when you are given that option, you don't get citizenship when you leave. So if you join it if you willingly join the military, and when you leave the military, you do get citizenship. So that's one of those things that like Suj Kosi is trying to do, is promote more Tevarin in the military. And what Nago is trying to do is trying to get more Tevarin involved in the government, because like trying to incorporate them into to the UEE, to the Empire as a fundamental part of it, because they are the second species of the Empire. And they are very much a second-class citizen in many ways, because they don't all have the same kind of rights and privileges that humans do, even civilians. So,
Segue, do you think that because of how prevalent the Tevarin are in the lore, do you think that there are any hidden Tevarin cast members or crew members working aboard the UEE Stanton?
I was going to ask the same question.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Well,
why not?
Because I've listened to audio files, and I know there's
You
a specific
cheater.
audio file. I'm a cheater.
cheater.
There's a specific audio file that references Tevarin, that I've heard. So,
Right.
in a surprising way. I'll just say that it's like the person's surprised about them. So,
Okay.
So like you said, that they were forced into the military, either prison, so they wouldn't be posted on such a prominent posting as the UES Stanton, I guess. It would
they'd
be more
likely
like
be in the military, or in the army, like
the
grunts,
army, foot soldiers.
Right. So, I mean, we've spoken about like possible gameplay outcomes from the last 3. So Mirango is being endorsed by the Translationist Party, the Future Frontier Foundation, and the Diplomats for Lasting Peace. What do you think we could possibly see with her being there? Apart from, of course, the capital being moved from from Earth to Terra, which is already a slightly big thing, but again, not so much, because those things don't even exist yet as a game.
Yeah.
What do you think, we might see as a result of her, like maybe more diplomatic missions and stuff?
Yeah, you'd probably see more specific opening, just similar to Addison. You'd see more open relationships with the Xi'an, probably more diplomatic missions or more missions into Xi'an space. Would be that instead of it being like you're trying to sneak in, it's easier just to get into Xi'an space, because they're still very restrictive.
So maybe a crossover there with Addison, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely.
She also wants to outlaw terraforming. So I'm guessing any sort of mission that to do with terraforming itself would be removed at that point.
I don't think removed, more made illegal.
Yeah.
Like we had with the AI. Yeah, so it's either government endorsed or under the radar. This would be like the same thing. Yeah,
criminal activity. That'd be cool.
Yeah, but I would love to see more Tevarin or how you want to pronounce it in game.
KFC. Sorry.
No, it's called Mezzer fried Tevarin. Okay, that's what it is. Mezzer fried.
Messer. Fuck off. 2 S's. Messer.
Easy there, Ivar. Calm down.
Anyway, moving swiftly on, Ileana Sherrod. What can you tell us about Ileana Sherrod?
Boring status quo.
Yeah, pretty much. She was she is the High Secretary of the current Imperator, and so she basically
High Secretary is the actual sort of power behind the Imperator. Yeah.
So she's basically gonna have 10 more years in power, essentially. This time around, because she knows how High Secretary works. I wonder who. I mean, you don't have running mates in this, so like we don't necessarily know who is going to be High Secretary once she becomes High Secretary and that kind of thing, which is a very interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, she nominates the High Secretary.
Yeah,
the it is, but it's still up to the I think the Senate to choose. So.
Yeah, but you kind of like. You don't know until it's too late, almost as a citizen, right? It's almost like she could have anybody under the wings there, and like she's basically being carried by her own personality. But yeah, as you say, like boring status quo. She's the current High Secretary, so everything that currently happens in the verse, in lore or whatever, is what she wants to maintain. With synth world being something that she is not too keen on, and thus instead proposing to increase infrastructure spending. Elsewhere in the Empire, like to strengthen the Empire that way.
Newer stations, I think. Think newer stations, better jump point protections,
right?
Cheaper offloading stuff, that kind of thing.
Right.
So all of these consequences of the election that we've discussed seem rather nebulous and not hugely impactful to the gameplay.
Yeah. That would be the intention, I imagine.
Not the immediate.
The immediate one, yeah.
I would say it was definitely more of a where will Star Citizen go in 3 years, in 2 years? Where will it be in beta? Where will the story be in beta? And so just like any other kind of like, I guess like in real life, there's not an immediate impact of electing somebody. That impact is felt, 6 months, a year, 2 years on, when that person starts to use their power. So same kind of thing. You don't see something happen right overnight, but see the change.
So I guess there's only one last thing to cover unless you have any more topics, Darge.
No, what are we covering?
So who are you voting for, Darge?
Yeah, I think we kind of popped the cork that at the very start of the show. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Right, because yes, it would be Leilani Addison. Yes.
Okay. And
Paul's shaking his head like, damn Europeans.
So, Paul, who are you voting for, Paul?
Myre Nago.
You can't even say her name right. How can you?
Yep.
That's his thing.
I can't say anyone's name right, but I think she is the safest status quo we currently have with actual progression. Like she doesn't like the one thing I fear about Addison is like one of the things that you could actually see is that I could see an impact is increased fees. So for instance, like you would like I know we don't really have it right now, but like you will have higher fees at docking ports and stuff like that because she has no way of paying. Addison has no way of paying for a lot of her research and upgrades. She hasn't talked about it. She's just like, oh, well, we're going to do everything the same. And then we're also going to increase funding for everything else. So it's like, but you also don't want to cut military spending. So where are you getting that money? You have to increase taxes. So that's going to impact the gameplay itself. I feel like a little bit more.
Just be rich, bro.
Just be rich, man. It's fine.
I mean, currently we don't have any fees at all, other than when you're transferring money between players, and that's a 0.5% fee, which is like 10% of what PayPal charges in real life. So it really is nothing right now.
And
it is nothing right now, but it might go up. So that's the thing.
We lost Myre. Oh, there we go. Here's
no,
Myre.
I'm here. I was just putting my guy down as I can. Here we go.
And of course, who are you voting for there, Myre?
Addison, of course. Look at my banner.
Yeah, the meme. The meme candidate.
The meme. So take this
there
back.
You go, burp.
Take this back. She's triggered. Okay, she's gonna make some mean AI.
I actually don't mind people voting for Addison. It's the same kind of what happened with, for those of you who don't remember, we actually voted for the I don't know why we were able to, but we were able to vote for the senator of Elysium, I think is what it is, for Jalan, the senator from Jalan, which is the senator from the Tevarin homeworld, which is how Suj Kosi got elected, because the entire community was like, yeah, we want to have a Tevarin as the senator from the Tevarin homeworld. That makes sense. That works, and that's interesting. I think
what bird brain thought that was a good idea?
Bird goes, brrr, you know.
Yeah.
Does he molt in the Senate?
All right. Well, Paul's voting for this wishy-washy candidate who wants to turn Earth into a snow globe museum.
Yep.
Frickin' embezzling taxes and stuff. And what else is Meringue all doing?
Old and busted. Earth is old and busted.
Mm.
Hair is the new hotness.
Yeah.
Old and busted. New hotness.
Insider trading.
Oh, who doesn't do insider trading? We don't know who backs. We don't know who backs Addison either. Is the issue? Who's her benefactors? How'd she get
science
all the money to
does? Well, I can tell you exactly who backs Addison.
The nebulous
Microtech.
concept of science.
Microtech.
Educators United back Addison. The Institute for Interspecies Peace back Addison. The UEE Science Society back Addison. All right.
So all the
let's go
broke
back.
people depending on government for funding.
That is not important.
So how did she get all that money to run for Imperator? That's the question. That maybe you should look into her connections with private businesses. See if a certain Microtech shows up or Hurston shows up. Maybe there's a little where they're going to get that money from for all this science spending. Maybe they can drop those taxes on the big businesses and put it on the small guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just saying.
But really, it's sad that the true candidate, the true winner, the true Imperator in our hearts did not run, and that's, of course, Tessa Bannister.
Tessa Bannister should have won. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would die for Tessa Bannister.
Oh, man. And I have repeatedly, you know?
Oh, it's a weird. We're in a weird space with Star Citizen. There are people who don't know who Tessa Bannister is.
That
there
is
will be
right.
people who watch this video who are watching this stream right now and go, "Who?" You know. Bacon.
She will return.
Bacon.
She will return
Bacon.
one day.
Stress bacons.
Forever bacon.
Mm.
All right.
Shall we wrap it up?
We shall. So you rolled us in, roll us out.
Thank you so much for watching us here at Fortnightly Frontier. If you did enjoy this, please hit that follow button for the Myre, and of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the little bell, comment below. Let us know who you think should be the Imperator, if what you think those impacts will be, and make sure to catch.
And why is it Addison?
Wrong answers. All the wrong answers. I guess, what is it? Catch every 2 weeks on twitch.tv/Myre. Of course, make sure you're following him on social medias as well, twitch.tv/Myre and youtube.com/MyreTest. And him on, there we go, him on
The internet.
twitter.com/thedarkjanitor. I'm sorry, Darjanator. Darjanator, it's just spelled like that, or twitter.com/Fortnite. Is it
Fort Frontier?
Fort Frontier.
Yes, because Fortnightly Frontier is too long.
Yes. And as we say always, we'll see you sometime around the verse.
I forgot to press this button.